Hey, Nick, I want to say thanks for joining me. Super excited to dig into Cork and their unique cybersecurity warranty and how it's different from cyber insurance and really what it means to our customers here in Canada. And before we jump in, can you tell me a little bit about Cork as a company and your own role there?
Yeah, sure thing. So Cork is a cybersecurity vendor specifically for managed service providers and their small business customers. We specialize in providing compliance monitoring in North America as well as cyber warranties. And basically, when I mean compliance monitoring, what that means is we typically monitor our clients' infrastructure to make sure that there's no misconfigurations across the tool sets that they have in their environment that would void out their cyber insurance policy. Like if MFA is turned off, if data backups aren't running, if antivirus isn't installed, we give the MSP and that small business the heads up saying, hey, you're going to want to get that addressed. In addition, we also provide a financial cyber warranty, which could offer payouts of $500,000 in the event of a cybersecurity incident.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks for that sort of 10,000-foot view of what Cork does. So, as a follow-up question, you sort of referenced cyber insurance and cyber warranty. I keep hearing that insurance just really isn't enough on its own. Can you break down how the cyber warranty is different than cyber insurance for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So cyber insurance is super important. All small businesses out there should definitely have cyber insurance. Where the cyber warranty comes into place is it's really designed to be more immediate relief and cover things that are typically not covered by a cyber insurance policy. So typically when a cyber event happens, typically a cyber insurance policy, there would have to be some sort of lengthy forensic audit that occurs, which results in a lot of time lapse. A client might be waiting several weeks or several months before they're ever receiving any funds from their insurance carrier. With a cyber warranty, we could provide up to $500,000 towards that small business available to them in a matter of days. So it's really, designed to be fast access to cash. What we could also do is we could pay out the cyber insurance deductible as well. So let's say an organization already has a $2 million cyber insurance policy. Odds are they might have a deductible, also known as a retention, of 10, 20, $30,000 per cyber incident. With a Cork cyber warranty, we would be able to pay off that deductible and retention. That way, there's no out-of-pocket expenses that the client would have to worry about. And then last but not least, we're also covering some types of attacks that are typically not covered by an insurance policy, like SMS attacks, email gift card scams, wire transfer fraud payments, just to name a few.
Well, that's fantastic. I was actually going to ask a specific question about, what types of attacks and incidents does Cork cover that's different than cyber insurance. So it sounds like you mentioned fund redirect fraud, SMS phishing. Is there anything else that might be covered that would be good to know?
Yeah, so some other supplemental ways Corp will cover up to $500,000 are things like incident response, business interruption loss, data recovery, as well as the ever famous ransomware payments. And again, all of these funds are going to be available more instantaneously than it would with a traditional insurance policy. Typically with insurance, it's going to cover a lot more things and pay out a higher rate, in the millions upon millions of dollars. The cyber warranty is a more narrow scope of coverage, and it's a lower dollar amount, only up to $500,000 as opposed to millions of dollars. But the advantage here is that, again, we're paying out instantaneously in a matter of days. You don't have to wait around months and months and months.
That's fantastic. So when you talk about sort of instant fund access, what does that look like in real life? Like how fast does a business actually see money hit their account if something were to actually go wrong?
Yeah, so I'll actually tell you about a success story that recently happened in the Toronto, Canada area with it was a small business construction organization that unfortunately they fell victim to a wire transfer fraud attack. And this was a small business that was doing the right things with their managed service provider. They had an endpoint protection antivirus solution installed. They had patch management running. They had security awareness training turned on. They had multi-factor authentication turned on. So they had a really robust cybersecurity posture, but unfortunately, these bad threat actors did indeed get through. So unfortunately, what happened was the construction company got an email and it said, "Hey, we're one of your vendors. You have to pay us for wood. This is our new bank account." And unfortunately, they sent that money to that new bank account when that email was spoofed, and they were out $21,000. Their cyber insurance policy did not cover that type of wire transfer fraud. The bank was unable to reverse the funds. So what Cork did on day number one, we issued them a $10,000 virtual debit card. That way they had that instant access to cash the same day they had that cybersecurity incident. And then there was about a 2 week waiting period because we wanted to see if insurance would pay out, which they didn't. We wanted to see if the bank could reverse the funds, which they weren't able to. So within that 2 week period, that's where we were able to release the remainder of the money. So in total, the client was able to recover $21,000 through the Cork cyber warranty.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we see fund redirects happen all the time, and I always joke it's not really a cybersecurity lapse; it's more of an end user training issue. But the results are money leaves the account, and unfortunately, usually the business is left holding the loss. So that's fantastic.
Yep.
I know one of the things I hear from our clients is, especially around insurance, is they loathe paperwork. They hate doing paperwork. So can you talk to me about how the application process might work, and then how painful it is to do a claim if they actually need to do it? Do you have to jump through a ton of hoops, or is it pretty easy?
Yeah, it's relatively easy. So what we're doing here at Cork is we're really simplifying the process. And let me go ahead and share a quick slide here if you want to bring that up to the screen. I believe it's in the backstage there if you want to. Perfect. Excellent. So basically what we're doing here at Cork is we're not just providing the warranty, but we're providing a monitoring platform that's ultimately going to help eliminate those lengthy paperwork security questionnaires that you would often find with insurance. So our monitoring software is going to be watching over all the security tools within your environment, which is typically things like your remote monitoring and patch management software. Essentially what that means is your Windows machine up to date? Also, your endpoint detection and response or antivirus solution, making sure that there's good software installed on those machines to prevent the bad stuff from getting installed. Of course, data backups are obviously an important one to make sure that all your data is protected just in case your server ends up dying because of a hardware failure, or maybe a malicious software does make it past your antivirus and infect that machine. And then last but not least, of course, we're going to be monitoring your multi-factor authentication. We want to make sure that Craig is actually having MFA turned on when he's logging into his machine. So he's going to get typically that alert on his phone when he goes to sign in. So because we're able to monitor all these different security tools, what we're able to do is actually share this information with the cyber insurance brokers and carriers and pre-fill the majority of the questions on those security questionnaires for insurance. Typically, the way that you fill out a security insurance questionnaire, it's a very long manual process. It's a lot of questions. Is MFA turned on? Yes or no? Are data backups being performed? Yes or no? Is endpoint protection or antivirus installed? Yes or no? And what Cork is doing is, because we're monitoring these tools, we're automatically pre-filling the answers to those questions. So the next time you sit down and you're trying to get an insurance policy, Cork can help you with that paperwork because we're pre-filling the majority of those questions. And if you have a Cork cyber warranty within your environment as that supplemental gap coverage, we're typically seeing a reduction in cost of the premiums of an insurance policy by roughly 30%. So again, if you match Cork cyber warranty with a cyber insurance policy, typically you're going to be saving around 30% on your cyber insurance policy overall.
Wow, that's fantastic. So that kind of explains how the front end works. What happens if I need to trigger off something happened? How do I request my coverage?
Yeah, it's real easy. We've never had to deny a cyber warranty claim payout to date. Knock on wood, thank God. There's a couple different ways that we'll be able to pay out. So number one, if it's something small like an email phishing attack, gift card scams, typically the MSP would notify Cork, and we could provide those funds in a matter of 2 days. Usually it's same days, couple hours, but our SLAs is 2 days. If it's something larger like a ransomware attack or the wire transfer fraud attack, like I mentioned earlier today, typically what would happen is we would give the client instant access to funds, a preloaded debit card up to $10,000 the same day of the cyber incident. From there, we would examine and verify the type of attack. Was the bank able to reverse those funds? Do they have insurance? Do they not have insurance, etc.? Then from there, we're able to release the remainder of the funds within 30 days. That's our SLA. In most cases, like I mentioned earlier, it was about 2 weeks for us to release the remaining $21,000 total during that wire transfer fraud attack. Then if it's something bigger, where it's a multi-million dollar attack and the client already has a multi-million dollar cyber insurance policy, we would still give instant access to funds, and then we would examine and verify the type of attack alongside the insurance adjuster. So we would have to see and figure out what insurance would pay out on, what the warranty would pay out on, and the type of attack, and that could be a little bit more complex. In most cases, the Cork cyber warranty is going to pay out first, and then cyber insurance would kick in after that. And the reason why we do it that way is ultimately to lower the cost for our clients overall. Since launching the company, we have never had to raise the premiums on Cork after an incident occurs. So if you utilize us today, 6 months from now, we're not increasing your bill. Whereas typically with cyber insurance, after a cyber incident happens, just like when you're driving a car and you have a car accident, insurance rates are going to go up. So that's why we always want to make sure that we're kicking in first to reduce the likelihood of your insurance premiums going up in the future.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's great to hear. So if I'm a customer, one of the things I'm going to ask is, how does the monitoring work? Does the customer have to install anything? Does their MSP handle it? What kind of alerts should the customer expect? Can you talk a little bit about how that would work?
Yeah, so typically the way that the monitoring works is that the managed service provider is going to connect the security tools into the core platform. Let me go ahead and share an updated slide here real quick. So this is just a quick glance of some of the security tools that we're integrating with. So there's no software agent that's going to be installed on the actual end client's machine. It's all going to be an API configuration behind the scenes. And we tend to be very vendor agnostic. So it doesn't matter who you're using for patch management or endpoint protection or backups or MFA. We tend to work with a variety of those tools. From there, we can proactively alert either the MSP or the end client if there's any misconfigurations within the environment that would void out coverage. Like if someone turned off MFA, if there's a device out there that doesn't have data backups running, etc. That's all going to be found in our monitoring platform. So again, this machine over here doesn't have EDR installed. This machine over here might not have backup installed. So our platform is going to proactively alert both the client and the MSP.
That's fantastic.
Think of it a lot like a check engine light in your car, right? You're driving your car and something is wrong with one of those components. The check engine light starts flashing and dinging saying, hey, bring this into the shop. It's covered under the car warranty, and we want to get that fixed before an accident ever occurs. So that's what we're trying to do here, but from a cybersecurity standpoint.
Oh, that's great. That's great news. So it sounds like most of the heavy lifting is on the MSP, with maybe a little bit on the customer side if they notice something that they got to tell us about. So that's fantastic.
Correct.
Yeah. So another question we hear is cybersecurity is crazy expensive already. You've talked a little bit about how you can help reduce the premiums for customers, but how much is Cork going to cost me? Like, is it a flat fee? Does it vary based on number of users? How does that structure work?
Yeah, typically it's a per user pricing model, and you would be purchasing it through your local managed service provider. I would say on average, typically our cyber warranties are about 1/5 of the cost, if not a little bit less, of a cyber insurance policy. So it's relatively cheap in the whole grand scheme of things. So yeah, you could get a $500,000 policy for, depending on your size, a couple $100 a month, if not probably less.
No, that's fantastic. I appreciate if you giving us that feedback. I know in Onit, Simply the Best platform, we're actually including the cyber warranty as a default inclusion, so no extra pricing for customers. So for our customers, the advantage is they get the $500,000 coverage as part of their total monthly fee, no extra fee, which is nice for them.
Mm-hmm.
So if I experience a cyber attack, but I don't follow guidelines, so perhaps I've said to a customer, you really need to have EDR or you need to have backup, and they just, for whatever reason, they don't want to do it. Does that void the warranty, or how does Cork handle cases like that?
Yeah, it does. So within the platform, if there's a user or device that's out of compliance, we're letting you know, and you have a 48-hour window to fix that particular user or device. But what we're doing is we're at least letting you know, saying, hey, you got to fix this. Whereas typically with cyber insurance, you fill out that questionnaire once a year and you don't know whether your policy is valid or not valid because there's no data or analytics to validate those security tools that are running in real time. Whereas with Cork, we're going to know in real time if Craig has MFA turned off or if Nick turned off his data backups, which are all requirements to the cyber warranty. It's important to know that if we're pausing warranty coverage and payouts, we're only doing it on an individual user basis. So if Nick has MFA turned off, but Craig has MFA turned on, and we're both at the same company and we get hit by an attack, Cork is going to pay out things related to Craig because he's doing a good job, but we're not going to be able to pay out things related to Nick because he has MFA turned off. We told you about it. It's been over 48 hours. And at that rate, our hands are pretty tied.
Oh, that's fantastic. At least I'm not losing all my coverage.
Yeah.
That's great news. So is there any specific Canadian considerations that Cork has around payouts or privacy laws or compliance? Because we're north of the border, a lot of software solutions are built out of the US and don't consider Canada. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure thing. So we've had 3 cyber warranties come through over the last 9 or so months. All 3 of those claims were Canadian. 3 different MSPs. One was a construction firm, one was a law firm, one was I believe it was a medical organization that had a cyber incident. So again, 3 different verticals across 3 different MSPs. We bill in Canadian dollars, so you don't have to worry about US currency conversion or anything like that. The only area that we're really not able to sell the warranties into right now are Quebec as of this time, just because of the French-speaking laws there are a little bit different. But other than that, pretty much business as usual.
That's fantastic. So what's the biggest success story you've seen with a Canadian SMB? I know we talked a little bit about the fund redirect and the construction firm. Are there any other standout examples you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, for sure. So here's another one that happened with a Canadian-based MSP out of Ontario. So let me go ahead and share the story here. So basically what happened is there was an MSP, Scott Birmingham of Birmingham Consulting, and one of their clients was a law firm that suffered a phishing email incident. Basically what it was a data exfiltration attack where tens of thousands of sensitive SharePoint records were getting exposed. Luckily, though, the MSP was able to step in and shut down that bad threat actor. However, during the process, they had to perform an incident response and remediation. Sometimes with cyber insurance carrier, they dictate who could be the ones doing the incident response and remediation. They have certain pre-approved vendors. With Cork, we're a little bit more flexible. We'll pay out any organization that performs the incident response. So in this example, it was actually the MSP themselves that was performing the incident response. So they were able to roll up their sleeves and spend around 72 hours the entire weekend, making sure that the bad guys were out of the network, making sure that they were really bunkered down and secured. It was, basically 72 hours straight. Cork even paid for pizza for the overnight team doing all the work here. And it resulted in an over $10,000 incident response bill. But luckily, because this client had the Cork cyber warranty, we were able to pay off the bill of that MSP. So the client had 0 out-of-pocket expenses whatsoever. And of course, they were able to get a better cybersecurity lockdown in their environment because their MSP did a very thorough incident response there.
I think that's great news. I know one of the things that I've mentioned time and time again is I love the fact that Cork puts the power back in the customer's hands. As you mentioned, most of the experience we've had with incident responses, we do, about 1 a month on average. Some of them, the IR teams are fantastic. Some of them you can tell that they're far more interested in cost remediation and mitigation. So letting the customer have the control to understand whether, if data rebuild is available, that they can leverage Cork Warranty to help pay for that, where they may have a little bit of a harder time getting the insurance provided incident response to do it. So I love that feature of Cork specifically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Nick, that's really it. I want to really thank you for breaking this all down for us. It's been really clear. Obviously, there's a lot more to do with cyber protection than just buying insurance, and Cork seems to fill a really unique gap for SMBs, and really appreciate your time today.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.